All right, let's talk about one of the weirdest, most fascinating, and most contradictory bands in the history of music, Steely Dan. I mean, these guys broke every single rule in the rock and roll playbook. Their sound, their whole story, it's just unlike anything else. And this quote, it absolutely nails it. The perfect musical anti-heroes for the 70s. They weren't your typical rock gods, not by a long shot. No, these guys were different. They were cynical, they were total recluses, and they were obsessed. I mean, obsessed with a crazy level of perfection. So here's the thing you have to understand about Steely Dan. It's all about this massive paradox. You listen to the music, right? And it's just gorgeous. So smooth, perfectly polished, full of these incredible jazz chords. It's like audio silk. But then you actually listen to what they're singing about. And it's all about losers, junkies, shady deals, just the grimiest side of life. It's this beautiful, perfect sound wrapped around these really dark, cynical stories. So how does something like that even happen? Well, to get it, we've got to go all the way back to the beginning. Picture this. It's the late 60s, a small liberal arts college, and two total misfits are about to cross paths. And this is where it all started. You've got Donald Fagen, who's this super brainy jazz and literature geek, and then there's Walter Becker, a guitar genius with this bone-dry sense of humor. Now, while everyone else was jamming to blues rock, these two were bonding over books, specifically super dark, weird authors like William S. Burroughs. And that sensibility, that's what would fuel their lyrics forever. And get this, for a piece of trivia, it just shows how strange their journey was from the get-go. Their first college band had the amazing name The Leather Canary, and their drummer, just some kid named Chevy Chase. Yeah, that Chevy Chase. You literally can't make this stuff up. So after college, they head to Brooklyn, thinking they're going to be professional songwriters. The only problem, their songs were just too strange for mainstream pop stars. So they struggled for a while, writing music for a low-budget movie, trying to get anyone to record their stuff. They even got a song recorded by Barbra Streisand, of all people. But writing hits for others, nah, that was never going to be their thing. And this leads us to a huge turning point, the moment Steely Dan really became Steely Dan. They were about to make a move that was basically unthinkable for a successful rock band back then, and it changed the game completely. So in 1974, right at the height of their early success, they just quit touring, that is. They couldn't stand it. They hated how the music sounded different every night, hated the whole roadie lifestyle. So what did they do? They fired their band, locked themselves in the studio, and basically became a duo. From then on, it was just them and a revolving door of the absolute best studio musicians money could buy. Okay, if you need one story to understand just how obsessive these guys were, it's the story of the guitar solo on their song Peg. They knew exactly what they wanted, this bluesy but kind of funky solo. So they start calling in guitar players. Not just any players, we're talking 7 of the hottest session guitarists in the world. Legends. They'd come in, play something amazing, and Fagen and Becker would just shake their heads. Nope, not it. Finally, a producer suggests this other guy, Jay Graydon. He comes in, lays down this absolutely perfect 30-second solo, and that was it. But here's the craziest part. Nobody told him. He only found out his solo made the album when he heard it on the radio months later. That was Steely Dan. Now, this obsession with perfection, it was a double-edged sword. It led to some incredible breakthroughs, but man, it also nearly destroyed them. I mean, musically, these guys were operating on a whole different plane. They literally invented their own chord. They called it the mu major. It was their secret sauce, a way to get these really sophisticated jazzy sounds without it sounding like, elevator music. It was complex, but still had this warmth to it. It just shows you how deep they went to get the exact sound they heard in their heads. And they were tech pioneers too. They got so frustrated that human drummers couldn't play perfectly on time. We're talking about microscopic variations here, that they just built a solution. They spent $150,000, which was a fortune back then, to co-invent one of the very first digital drum machines. They called it Wendel. They wanted inhuman, mathematical perfection, so they literally built a machine to give it to them. But like I said, this obsession had a dark side, and it all came to a head with their album Gotcho. It became this legendary, cursed project. It took 3 years to make and was just an absolute nightmare for everyone. And then the worst possible thing happened. An assistant engineer was working late one night and accidentally erased the entire master tape of a song called The Second Arrangement. And this wasn't just any song. Everyone agreed it was the masterpiece of the album. Gone. Just wiped clean. They tried to record it again, but they could never recapture it. That spark was gone. The song was lost forever. And you think that would be the worst of it, right? Nope. That was just the start of the curse. Walter Becker got hit by a car, a really bad accident that put him out of commission for months. They were getting sued by their record company. They were getting sued by another artist for plagiarism. It was just one disaster after another. The pressure was just too much, and by 1981, the whole thing just collapsed. Steely Dan broke up. But of course, with Steely Dan, the story is never that simple. They were gone for 20 years, but when they came back, their legacy took a few more weird and surprising turns. So flash forward to the year 2000. They drop a comeback album, Two Against Nature. And what happens? It wins 4 Grammys. Not just any Grammys, it won Album of the Year. It was just incredible. The ultimate outsiders, who always sneered at the music industry, were suddenly given its biggest award. Tragically, Walter Becker passed away in 2017, and the end of that decades-long partnership played out in the most Steely Dan way imaginable, with a lawsuit. Donald Fagen and Becker's estate ended up in a bitter legal fight over who owned the band's name, all because of a contract they signed way back in 1972. It's just so perfectly cynical. And here's maybe the biggest irony of all. In recent years, they've been unofficially crowned the kings of a new genre, Yacht Rock. You know, that category for all the super smooth, slickly produced music from the late 70s and early 80s. They're basically the poster boys for it, whether they like it or not. So you might be wondering, what does Donald Fagen think of being called Yacht Rock? Well, a filmmaker asked him that exact question for a documentary. His response was short, simple, and pure 100 proof Steely Dan. He just said, "Why don't you go f*** yourself?" Yep, the anti-hero spirit is definitely still there. And really, that brings us back to the core mystery of Steely Dan. How in the world did 2 jazz snob, book nerd outsiders manage to create some of the most perfect-sounding, most successful pop music of their time while secretly filling it with these incredibly dark, cynical messages? That's the paradox, and that's what makes Steely Dan one of the most brilliant and endlessly fascinating bands ever.